Hello, everyone, and welcome back to From Adversity to Advocacy, Black Voices in Legal Education. This week, in our first episode, we're going to sit down with Mya Purnell, president of Loyola Law School's Black Law Students Association. Mya was very candid about her experience as a Black law student coming into this very dynamic field, and also her experience through her student activism on her way through. Sit down and get ready, because we are going to actually have a very, very, very straightforward conversation. Intro music produced and created by Obi-Azuike Jr. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to From Adversity to Advocacy, Black Voices in Legal Education. Today, I'm here with Loyola Law School's 2023 to 2024 Black Law Students Association President, Mya Purnell.
Hello.
Hi, Mya. I'm so excited to have you here today. So just give everybody a brief background about you, your legal education, and what inspired you to pursue a career in law.
Okay. Well, I'm Mya. I'm a 2L this year. I grew up outside of Austin, Texas. I went to undergrad at the Fashion Institute of Technology. And I would like to ideally pursue fashion law. What my background's in. But yeah, I was already living in LA after undergrad, so I just applied to the school closest to my home. I usually don't tell people that. I usually have like a good story.
Yeah, I didn't even know that.
And it also was the last school that was taking applications. So yeah. But it was on my list. And yeah, I usually like come up with a story of like, all of Loyola's experimental opportunities, like blah, blah, blah. Yeah, that's not true. I'm going to be honest today on Grace's podcast because she's real, so I'm trying to be real. But yeah, I'm here.
So you were already in LA. So what would you say, like, being someone who's Black in LA, because, you know, our experience is very unique, especially when you're Black and not from Los Angeles, but living in Los Angeles. Was that something that contributed to you wanting to become a lawyer at all and choosing the school that you went to, or was it just not something else?
In terms of choosing the school, that wasn't a big factor. Again, it was at the time that I applied the only school taking applications, but I think I moved in 2021, so there was still like a lot of COVID restrictions kind of going on, and I initially moved to Long Beach, and one of my best friends lived there. So for the most part, it was just kind of her. There weren't a lot of opportunities for me to make friends because it was still kind of COVID-esque, kind of lingering situation. So a lot of my friends I've made in LA, I have made in law school because I was only here for like a year prior to starting. But I will say, and I know that you understand as another Black girl from Texas, it's different. The people are different.
Yeah.
And I think that it really has shaped my experience in both LA and law school, because I think that I always comment about just kind of California culture in general. Like, I feel like it is like microaggression central. Like,
it's not in your face.
Exactly.
And then at the same time, the microaggressions are so in your face that you know that that's what it is.
And I think, I don't know if it's like if they're desensitized from it, but I've noticed that people from here are a lot less reactionary to it, and it's not even just like they're not reacting and they're like, oh, like that's messed up, but like I don't feel the need to get upset about it. It's more of like kind of like don't even acknowledge it. And then I think it seems like, oh, like I'm just sensitive. But I'm like, no, what happened was just
too much.
I'm like, actually what happened was like wrong and racist.
And you should probably be upset. And if you're not upset, that's not because I'm weird. It's just because you're not upset.
So I think that has been, and you know, I went to school in New York, but again, it's like so
like black and white, like
different.
Night and day,
and there was a lot of Black people in my school and where I was. So it's kind of, I feel like California, I feel like I'm often in predominantly white spaces, and And I feel like the community is different than the Black communities I've had in Texas and New York.
Yeah.
So I think it for sure is a certain level of adjustment that I think is kind of, I'm still working myself through.
Yeah. And also, like, being a 2L too, it's like that fresh, like, I just finished 1L, like, the hard academic part. And I feel like your 2L year, like, well, your 1L year, yes, you're still, like, networking. But I feel like your 2L year, that's the year where you really start networking and really, like, interacting with the legal field on a practical level.
Yeah.
And that's when you really start to see some of that. And, like, if you have any, can you share any specific instances of, like, systemic hurdles or stereotypes or things that you've encountered specifically as a Black law student and how you've noticed it's very unique to our experience?
Great question. One thing I feel like I've been struggling with this week in particular.
Mm-hmm.
I will say this week in particular, Maya being a Black student at Loyola has been terrible.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I can definitely agree with that one.
I'm like,
A little bit, but share. You can share with the viewers a little bit of what is going on, or just give like even just a brief background of how it's affected you.
Yeah. Well, what I was gonna say is like this. This week has had me thinking about my experience here at Loyola. And I think a question I kind of had for myself is like, okay, is this my experience as a Black woman in law school?
Yeah.
Or is this my experience as a Black woman at my law school?
Yeah.
Right? Like, is this something that everyone is experiencing?
Yeah.
Or is this specific to Loyola?
Yeah.
And I think, I mean, right, it's like clear to me that like maybe someone who goes to Howard isn't having these struggles. But it's like, okay, maybe someone who goes to UCLA is. But I think I don't really have those connections to like know. And I'm like, okay, is this normal? And is what I'm going through normal? And like what level of upset should I be?
Yeah.
But I think inherently there aren't a lot of Black people in law schools. So I think that in and of itself is a hurdle.
Yeah.
I haven't been the only Black person in a classroom since I was like maybe in like
5
elementary school.
Same.
So I remember like my first week and it was my writing class. I was like, oh, like this is weird. Like, oh my God, like I haven't felt like this in such a long time. So I think being such a minority in and of itself is hard. And then also like I think law school is incredibly elitist and there are levels of wealth to in almost like such a mass that I don't think I've ever experienced on a day-to-day basis. So it's also like, okay, well, like I'm one of the only Black people here. I am not driving my 2024 Mercedes to school every day that I'm
Mercedes, girl, Lamborghini.
like, right, like I don't have my G-Wagon in the school parking lot. So like there's that. And then there's also like, and I remember DeAndre said this at like the first time you brought Legally Fit my 1L year. He's like, some of the stuff you're learning in class is like dinner table conversations with people. And I was like, oh my God, like that's crazy. Like I just felt like he was just kind of commenting on the fact that like a lot of people's families, like they do this. Like they're not the first person in law school. But last final season, like in December, I was sitting in the library and this girl stepped out of the room and called her dad and was asking him a question about Joiner. She's like, yeah, me and my study group can't figure it out. And then she was on the phone with him for like 5 minutes. And she's like, oh, okay, thank you. Yeah, that makes so much sense. Thank you. And then went back in. And I was like, I am not living in the same world as a lot of these students. And it's like, I don't know. I think sometimes it's like very jarring to kind of see the difference in the starting lines for people. And it's like, okay, well, I don't have these tools. Like I can't call my dad to ask him a question about joinder. He'd be like, what is that? And what does that word mean? Like and I don't have anyone in my family that I could do that. So I think it's just.
Or even like the simple of like just knowing also other materials too. Like some of their parents will just be like, oh, well, I don't know it, but here's this book that costs like $300 something. That will help you learn it because it's talking about it in plain English. And it's like, wow, yeah, if I could read this $300 book as well, it's like access. Like that's a very big thing. I feel like here is like that non-access essentially to things really is what sets students apart.
And like people have tutors.
Yeah. That costs like $1,000.
When I realized that, I'm like, what do you mean? What do you mean?
Mm-hmm.
And then I'm like, and we're in the same curve?
Yeah,
we're on the same curve.
That's what makes me upset. If we weren't on a curve, like it was just like we're all graded, like this is an A, this is a B, this is a C, cool, whatever, like whatever. But if I'm graded on, okay, who wrote the most in this class? And who wrote the most is someone who literally was in mock trial when they're in middle school. In high school, they're in a pre-law forum. And undergrad, they were in this, their parents put them in this, and then their parents are on the phone every 2 seconds, just like you said, picking them up. Like, yeah, because literally same. Like, I literally had a project my 1 year in crim law. She don't know I'm talking about her. Well, I doubt she's even gonna listen to this, honestly. But literally, like, we weren't getting something and she called her dad. Yeah. And he gave us the answer on our homework and we got like the best grade in the class. Like, yeah, and well, it wasn't like a graded assignment, but the best grade in terms of like what we did.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it's like, yeah.
And I think that, I don't know, and I don't feel like Loyola accounts for that in a way that is proper. Like, okay, we have SI, and I think that is an important step towards the right direction, but I don't feel like the support for students who do not have the same resources as a lot of people on this campus is sustained throughout the experience as it should be.
Or like at least the first year at the minimum.
Yeah, like why is there a clear racial majority in privacy tort?
Yeah.
That's crazy. Like that.
Like every year, like there can't be a coincidence.
Crazy to me. I mean, I don't know if that's the same case this year, and I'm not taking credit for anybody's success.
But that is the reason. The reason why it would be going down is not because of SI. It's going down because of Legally Fit. Like us literally having one-on-one conversations and mentorships with these 1L students in order for them to get where they are. Like, it's not by the schools doing by any means, because
it was a major priority for me, and I think all of BALSA this year, was to provide like access to tutoring and Legally Fit, and just like checking in with them. Like any time anyone else told me what class they were in, I'm sending them outlines immediately, unsolicited.
Because the other organizations like the Armenian group, just a lot of different groups, like they have like Loctite, like outlines that are very thorough, and they do not give it to no one else. That's not their group. And we don't even have something like that, because like even if we do, it's an outline based off of someone who got a B.
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, if the Black students are historically not doing well as everyone else, even the resources that we put together ourselves are not going to be what they are for everyone else. Exactly. And I think it's just, and like, okay, I don't have the answers, right? Like, again, like with BALSA, like I'm constantly asking the 1Ls what they need, what we can do to help them, and like checking in and seeing how they're doing. But like, obviously, like I don't have a background in education and like how to best do things for people. And I think
it's also not our job.
And so I have a level of empathy for the people who are supposed to be figuring this out. But then I also have like a level of discernment to say that my empathy for you having to figure this out it can only go so far. And I still can say, and I think I should say, whenever I or anyone in BALSA doesn't think what's being done is adequate. You know? So I think it is heavily a resource thing. And I also am a believer of like who is supposed to be helping and making those decisions. I think institutions as a whole like have to be incredibly thoughtful about who they are putting in those positions. And it's like I don't think certain things are qualifications. I don't think that, because like in 20 years, I don't want an institution to come to me. They're like, you're a successful Black lawyer. Come fix it for the Black students.
Yeah, because it's like, what have I done to show you that I have the capability to fix this?
Exactly. Like if I don't have those skills, I'll be like, find somebody who has done this or has worked towards doing this and like has that kind of experience or like has those tools and like some capacity. And I think, and I'm not saying this specifically about Loyola, and I'm not saying this specifically about any person, but it's like I've gone to, or like I'm like even my undergrad, like I think that there's an issue of people putting people in positions in which they're supposed to be doing work for communities that they're a part of, but they don't have the skill set to do the work.
That's the perfect way to word it. That like they're a part of the community but don't have the skill set.
Yeah. And it's also like, I don't think that, like if someone was like, oh, can you help this middle school, like their Black issues, or like help the Black students with A, B, and C and try to like help them out. Like if I don't have the qualifications of doing that DEI work, I can't help you.
Yeah.
I can try, but like I am not gonna want to be held to the expectation of the people who do that work, because they're there. Like they're out there. And I think it's also like, right, it's also like a representation thing. Like this is the first semester I have a professor who even slightly looks like me.
Yeah.
Actually, this is the first semester that there's a professor on campus teaching that looks like me. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's only because she just came back.
Exactly. And I'm like, that's so crazy. And I'm taking her for criminal procedure. And I was dreading taking criminal procedure. I still really don't really want to take it, even though I'm in it.
It's traumatic.
But it's like, again, like I'm like for the bar, I'm like, okay, I'm gonna take it. I remember first class, I was like, oh my God, like please, this is miserable. But now that I've been in the class for a few weeks, I love her class because I feel like the way in which she teaches, the way in which she communicates, the way in which she holds herself is so authentically that of a Black woman. And I just inherently resonate with that. And I'm like, I think it's insane that this is one of the first times in my academic career that I'm experiencing that and seeing that. And I think that there's an issue of the idea that I don't want to say like all Black people are made the same, but no, like all people are made the same.
All city folk and kinfolk. Like just because we all have Black skin does not mean we have like the same want and need, which actually perfectly goes into the next topic, which is community. Like how has seeing a Black community or not seeing a Black community on campus really like helped or impacted your view of the school, your time at the school, and also your reasonings for wanting to be such an activist as you are on campus?
Well, one of our Balsa goals, in addition to, we talked about the academic success kind of part of it, but was also building more community. Because I think by 1L year, I definitely, I feel like there wasn't a big Black community on campus. And I think
there's like a lot of Black people. But there's community.
Exactly. And I think I will 100% acknowledge the fact like y'all started with COVID. Like there were so many reasons as to why that dynamic was there. But like I know like there were upperclassmen that I was like, okay, like I feel like I do have a relationship with them. Like you and I was like, Grace's freaking guiding light for me in my 1L year. You're my mentor and you were like so helpful. And I like will always be grateful to you for that. And like there was Savion and there was Flo. And like I feel like there was a lot of these kind of like individual
pocket.
There was a lot of individual
not community.
Relationships that I was able to form. But I will also say that like that is just how I operate, right? Like I am a very community-based person. Like I like to have people. And I feel like you're that way and Savion's that way. And I think that's part of why like I have those relationships with you. But I think a big important part of creating community is for those people who aren't that way and who like might be more shy. And like it's having a community that people feel comfortable and like emboldened to be a part of. And I don't think that was there last year. I mean, I don't feel happy with it now, if I'm honest.
But it's definitely getting better.
But it's better,
More 1L Black students studying together.
Like,
I feel like prior to this year, I don't want to say all Black people as a blanket statement on this campus, but a good amount of Black people that were on this campus felt as if there are too many Black people in one area, they need to disperse.
What?
Yeah, like seriously, that is how they kind of like view themselves. And I feel like now I finally am seeing like the opposite.
Yeah.
No, like seriously, there's like literally there was literally saying that there's a lot of Black people in one area. Like you need to probably like spread out so that people on campus don't feel like uncomfortable or don't want to come over because like it's a Black area that they don't want to disturb. And so you guys disturb every Black area if you want to. But
actually, I have no issue saying there are no Black areas. Okay, there's not one Black area. I'm still fighting for balsa space in the multicultural center,
room.
which I think is crazy that is even
a
a thing that we're having to fight for, seeing as the spaces for affinity groups was taken away, and they're just like, well, and like we have the space, but it's not really your space, but it could be your space maybe one day
if you prove to us that you deserve the space.
And I'm like, I'm actually tired of having to prove
anything. This was initially brought to me last year before I even became president. Like when it was the summer before the school year started. The multicultural room was supposed to have finished last year, and that was supposed to be all of our offices. It was supposed to be an office from us, LLSA, AP,
Paulson,
and then you know how like the Indian, Pakistani,
salsa.
like salsa, they had to make their own separate. So that was supposed to be it. That's why there's 4 rooms in there. And then the main area was supposed to be like a lobby area. So it's like now for it to be like, oh, no. Like we're redacting that statement. It's actually for this. It's kind of just like a dang, like anytime we get something, it kind of has to be snatched from underneath us.
I think this is just, and DI is one of, it's a truly, genuinely a passion of mine.
Yeah.
Right? And one thing I will fight tooth and nail for is that inclusion does not mean that everyone gets access to everything. Yeah. And I think one of the issues is they're like, okay, well, who gets a space? Like, what if we give Balsa and like these people a space, but then like this particular student or like they consider themselves an affinity group and like they get one. Well, if there's like a bunch of them and they're not a minority on campus.
Yeah, that's the whole point.
That's not fair. To me, I'm like, okay, well, I have people on campus that are my friends, like my black people on campus. I don't want to hang out here.
Yeah, when I'm seeing a bunch of, honestly, I'll just say white kids. Like, I'm going to be completely honest, during final season, walking into the multicultural room for like studying and seeing a bunch of white kids in there, I was like, I felt really disrespected. And there have been a couple of times where I've been in there just like studying in between like classes because like, I'm not going to go all the way home. And I'll see like a bunch of white students in there, I'm just like what? Like we can't have anything.
Yeah. But I think it's like also the idea of like most of my friends on campus are either Black or of color. And like we leave to spend like if we don't have to be here in terms of like class, like, we leave. Because like I'm like that's like a more safe space and like I can have more candid conversation. And I don't think that every single student on this campus feels that way, you know? And I don't think it's fair that I feel like the people of color on campus don't have like these safe spaces. And that's back to like the point of like inclusion. I was like, well, if this is about diversity, equity, and inclusion, there being a space specifically for minorities on campus is not a bad thing because that then means that certain other groups don't get it. But it's like they get everything else. So it's like where is
we're getting our own thing? Yeah.
Like, and where is
because it was never made to really like do what it's supposed to do. It was made to just shut us up and enough time for a class to graduate, the class that asked for these things to graduate. Yeah. I will say we do have only a short amount of time, I know, because we both have class, but I do want to go into like what changes you think are necessary for a more equitable legal education system for Black students. I would say Loyola based, but also broadly, because honestly, I'll be completely honest, like just from talking to other law students, like at California schools and non-California schools, like some of my friends at Columbia, like these issues seem to be like the same everywhere. It's more so about how bad it is because of the administration not responding to it. So what would you say you think are like some specific changes that you think are necessary?
I think, as I said before, being intentional about evening the playing field for Black students. Again, we talked about how we all don't have parents who are lawyers and we don't have the same access to particular resources. And I think doing, and again, like I don't have all the answers, but like figuring out how to even that playing field. And I think to me, it's like a financial thing, right? It's like, is there additional financial resources that you can provide to students, right? So you're like, okay, well, some people can't have their parents buy them a $300 book, but like, can y'all buy us?
Can y'all get in the library and maybe scan it? Yeah, like, no, that's a really good one.
I think
that's a
like,
very
it's and I'm not even saying like on an individual
and some of them
level.
are in the library though. Some of them are in the library for free. They also just need to also let us know.
Yeah,
like access.
I'm a big library girl. I have like 4 books checked out right now.
Yeah,
but I'm not even saying like not even just like books and things like that. Like, okay, yes, there are like certain things in the library, but it's like tutoring or I'm trying to think like what like just whatever. I'm not a
like
wealthy
student. Thing if it was extended into the semester. Like, I feel like teaching someone, hey, these are prongs, and this is how you go through prongs for, like, a month, and then just being like, okay, now you're going to start school, and that's it. Like, in between, you're checking in on us. It's like, that's not enough.
I agree. But yeah, because it's like, okay, there are outside meetings in this during the semester, but I do think
they're more social.
If it was more similar to how it is during the summer, because I think it is a useful tool. Like, I am not in any capacity shitting on SI. I 100%, like, I don't think I would not have known how to brief. Like, I 100% think SI is a major tool for students. However, I do think that if that kind of like tutoring aspect of it was extended throughout the semester, I think that would be more helpful, and I think it would be more productive. And I also think that, at least in my experience, like I would say I'm a squeaky wheel. I'm very squeaky wheel. I have a single complaint. Everybody and their mother's gonna hear it. I'm gonna let y'all know what I think is wrong and that it needs to be fixed. But everyone isn't like that. And I think there's an issue at Loyola, because that's where I go, and that's the only law school I have experience with, of taking silence as everything is okay. And
for sure,
I don't think that that is super productive. And it's like, with the one house, I said, like, I feel like I'm constantly checking in on them. Anytime I see them, I'm like, are you okay? How's this class? How's this going? Like, what's going on? And they have responses. They didn't like email me and be like, hey, like, I'm having this issue or whatever. And again, not that I am assuming that I am like the authority on these students. It's still real though. But like, they do come to me and also the other like balsa board, and they like ask us for help or outlines. Did you take this class? Like, all of these things. But I get a lot more responses from them when I'm in their face, being like, what's going on? How are you? How can I help? Like, you know? So I think that it's figuring out how to, which I feel like is like such a blatant statement, but like figuring out how to help the Black students in the way that like they want to be helped. And also listening to the students who are trying to be leaders on campus and who are very active on campus, and taking them, or like I feel like sometimes, like you and I, ex-boss of president, current IOC chair, probably about 9 other accolades that I can't think of off the top of my head. I'm just the boss of president. But like, I feel like taking us in a way that like we're not trying to cause trouble. And we're trying to be helpful.
Or if it is trouble, good trouble.
Exactly. Like, it's not like I just have this issue and I'm complaining to you guys. Like, no, I like am talking to people, and I'm sorry that everyone isn't as vocal as I am.
Exactly.
But
that doesn't mean it's not true.
But it's like, I have things to do. I'm not just making a complaint because I don't have anything else to do today. Like, this is important. And I think that just assuming that we do have good intentions, I think, is an important thing. And I don't think that's always happening here.
No, that's definitely real. And I really want to thank you so much for coming. And
thank you for having me.
This amazing conversation. This is very, very, very candid. I love this one so much. So I will be wrapping up this episode. This is Mya Purnell with Adversity to Advocacy, Black Voices in Legal Education. Ciao. Bye.